From the News Channel 5 Network, this is OpenLine.
Hello everyone, welcome to OpenLine. I am Ben Hall. One of my very favorite shows tonight, we're talking all about movies. Tonight we will see trailers for movies that are coming out in the month of August. So July winding down, August about to start. We're beginning to wind down from the big blockbuster summer movies, moving into award season. So some big movies coming out. You'll see the trailers. We're going to be talking with the film critic from the Nashville scene. Always happy to have with us Jason Shawhan. Thank you very much for being with us.
Hello.
Once again. So August, some big movies coming out. Yeah, I want to set the table here. What are you looking forward to? And then I also want to ask, what are some of the big things that have come out so far? Let's start with that. This summer, what has really stood out movie-wise this summer?
Okay, the big successes this summer are Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I mean, I expected something good from it, and they totally delivered. I mean, it was, it's a sequel to a franchise that goes back, almost 50 years now, and continues knocking them out of the park, which is not expected by anybody. And then Maleficent is also one of the big surprises of the year, just because built on one star's name, one star's reputation, built on an actress, which is just unheard of.
Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, and it's made over $700 million worldwide. So that's the kind of result that gets people greenlighting more films focusing on actresses and star power, and that can be a good thing.
Is there a movie, and the summer's more about the big blockbusters and just fun movies. Is there a movie this summer, or even that's come out thus far this year, that looks like an Oscar contender for Best Picture?
Ooh, that's a tough call. I mean, there's a lot of good films, but this year is sort of like, usually fairly early on there's something that sort of announces itself as, we're going to be something to watch. Like last year, about this time at the end of August is when the Telluride Film Festival happens, and that's the first one out of the gate. That's where the big like Oscar contender films, the awards season stallion race, I guess you would call it. That's where it begins. But I'll tell you something, the big one to watch as far as awards go, and what's just in terms of how people are responding to it, and also the money it's raking in, considering the marketplace, is Boyhood, which is opening here in town on Friday. I mean, it's setting attendance records for an independent film. It's like raking in dollars, and it's spreading on word of mouth. It's like selling out shows everywhere. And,
I'm very excited about Boyhood, and it is basically on word of mouth. Now, I think CBS Sunday Morning, they had a piece on it. It's an astounding accomplishment, I guess. It's certainly a great attempt. I mean, it's making a movie over a 12 or multi-year period. Yeah, sounds fascinating.
Yeah, they started shooting in 2002 with this 6-year-old actor, and Ethan Hawke, Patricia Arquette, and then the director's daughter playing the little sister, or I'm sorry, the older sister. I think she's older by a year. But and they just went back every year and filmed for like a week or two over the course of the following 12 years. So it's a narrative film. It's not a documentary. It's telling a story, but it's also sort of drawn together from what's happening in their lives.
We have that trailer. We'll talk about that movie in a moment. What about the money so far? Summer's a big time for movie industry to make tons of money. Are films delivering this summer?
It depends on who you ask. The industry is distraught. They're like, oh, profits are down, attendance is down, what are we going to do? The sky is falling, such and such. Because it's, it sort of builds on, if it's not bigger than the year before, somebody loses their job. I mean, that's how they construct it. But it's weird. Like the big successes this summer, like Captain America: The First Avenger, I think is still, if it's not the biggest moneymaker of the year, it's number 2. And the only one that was sort of in play there was the Transformers sequel, which came on gangbusters its opening weekend and then just sort of deflated, like a cake that you didn't pay proper attention to. So it's hard to say, but I mean they both made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, but it's also they both cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's it's weird. It's hard. If you just look at it on the basics, just like, movie X cost this much, but it was a huge hit, that's great and all. But it's sort of the if you look at the big picture of what all has come out from the major studios, it's not making as much money as they feel it should.
And if I look at the movies that have come out thus far, and I asked you this a little earlier, but okay, here we are, August 1st is about to start. Boyhood is coming out August 1st here. But if I look at the movies, I don't see a major Oscar contender. That says to me that the big Oscar contenders are going to be coming out from August 1st on. We haven't seen much.
Yeah, that is usually the case. I mean, in the art house and foreign world, there's stuff throughout the year, but I mean, it's just, unless you're willing to spend millions of dollars to do an active promotional campaign for award season, you can't really do that much with it. Is unfortunate, but it's the truth. So yeah, for the most part, anything that's gunning for Oscars or like the big awards, you're going to see that, tail end of August at the very beginning, and then as September is the Toronto Film Festival, the New York Film Festival, and Venice. I think Venice might be in late August as well, or somewhere in early September. But it's sort of like once they start, it's just like pretty much through the end of October. It's film festival season, and that's where the players emerge. And and it'll be great because people will talk about, like, oh well, Gone Girl's coming out, and that's going to be, that could be a player. But it's like, until the first audiences see it, nobody knows.
So we've talked a little bit about where we are this summer, what's been out. What about what's coming up? So here we are, like I said, August 1st. You mentioned Boyhood is coming out.
Yes.
So, all right, we've covered that, and we're going to talk more about it later. What are some of the other big movies coming out?
Guardians of the Galaxy. That also starts on August 1st, and it's, it's the latest from Marvel and Disney, and it's just wonderful.
Now, what is that rated?
It's PG-13. It's got some comic book violence. It's a comic book film, but and some rude puns and innuendo. But it's not. I mean, it's considering, you'll have films that have body counts in the millions. Like, it doesn't offend me or bother me. And
so we'll see a preview for that. What about some of the others?
Get On Up. Also coming out August 1st. August 1st is just a big day for movies.
That's this Friday.
Yeah, it's the James Brown story. And then there's an independent film called I Origins coming out that's from some people who made a film called Another Earth a few years ago. Sort of imaginative, low-budget science fiction. So that'll be interesting. It's got Michael Pitt from Boardwalk Empire. And it's all about a guy he's a research scientist who quite inadvertently gets involved with like reincarnation and stuff. It's very weird, but it's supposed to be like dizzyingly romantic, and that's always a good thing. And there's really not anything else that fits that particular bill coming out this weekend.
And it looks like you brought along, because you brought several trailers that we're going to show. As Above, So Below. Is that a horror movie?
Yes, it is. And it has virtue. It has the virtue of being a horror film coming out this year that doesn't look like it's going to turn into the same exorcism you've seen every other movie you go to at the very end. Because I got burned on Deliver Us from Evil. Had a great first hour doing interesting things, gritty, scary, and then the last hour is just the same old exorcism you see every time. And I'm just like, I'm done with it. You know what? We can have demon possessions. I don't have a problem with that. We can have, spectral intruders from another realm who are like, driving people to horrifying acts of violence. I'm fine with that too. But it's just, like, if you can't come up with a new way to film an exorcism, put it aside. It's played out. Until someone can step up. There's still not been a single film that comes to the level of 2006's Requiem, which is like the one documented case of the church working on an exorcism is taken from the case of a young German girl in the 60s, and this is based on that. The film's in German with subtitles, and it's absolutely wonderful. And I think it's on Netflix. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'll tell you though, it can be done because there's a series on Showtime called Penny Dreadful, and episode 7 of their first season is the best possession movie in decades.
Okay, that's all. That's great. All right, let's go to a couple calls here. Jay on line 1. Hello, Jay.
Hey, gentlemen, how are y'all?
Great. What's on your mind?
I was just wondering, it seems like Hollywood here lately has been making a lot of remakes, and I wonder what your thoughts were about that. And also, I love sports movies such as True Story. When 42 come out, I thought that was an outstanding movie, and I just wondered what his thoughts were on that, and I'll hang up.
Sports movies, remakes, what about that?
Well, to start with the remake question, I mean, the reason why Hollywood keeps going to the remake reboot thing is because they're supposedly dealing with proven titles, things that have recognition amongst audiences, and that they can throw several $100 million at, and presumably bring that audience in and maybe grab some others. It's a problem with it is the basic structure of the industry, because more and more the people who are making these decisions for these conglomerates who happen to distribute films, they don't necessarily have a film background. They've got like a financial background, or they come from marketing or something or whatever. So they're not really concerned about telling new stories. They're more about taking what they have access to or they can get and finding a way to make that like pay off in huge dividends, which that's how you run a business. That's fine, but it's not really so good for art. As far as sports movies, I may not be the best person to ask about that, but there was a really good one with Kevin Costner earlier this year that may have been based on the true story, where he was a guy setting up a new team, and everyone was just horrified at the choices he was making, and it all paid off in the end, like every sports film. That's not true. It's not like every sports film, because Rocky and the Bad News Bears, and there's been a few others, but for the most part, it pays off in the end. What was the one a few years ago? Moneyball. That one was great.
Oh, Moneyball. That was
it was really smart, and it was a sports film, but they made a really concerted effort to reach out to people who like really don't care about sports. It's a fascinating genre, and you can do so much with it, because it's one of those genres like horror in that it has a built-in audience. There are people who will respond to that and who are just like, okay, this is something that I enjoy. If this movie, has some decent lines and some good people in it, well, let's go with that.
The movies that you brought, I don't see a sports movie in there. Do you think there are any big? There are no big ones coming out.
I don't think there are any big ones coming out. I could be wrong. But
there were a couple this summer, but nothing big coming out.
There'll probably be another. Oh, actually, there's one that's sort of tangentially a sports film. That's one of the big awards things that was at Cannes earlier this summer, called Foxcatcher, and it's based on the true story of like a competitive wrestler who ended up getting murdered by an insane billionaire. And it's sort of like how his surviving brother, who is also a competitive wrestler, has sort of has to investigate and find it. So it's sort of like a hybrid sports
got several
mystery.
Things going on here.
Yeah, but it's fascinating, and it's from the guy who directed Moneyball, and it's from the producer Megan Ellison, who produced like Her and American Hustle and Zero Dark 30. I mean, she is the preeminent producer of intelligent big films.
So this is one
country.
of these big movies. Okay, we have to take a break. Philip, others on the line. Hold on. We'll get to your call. We'll take a break. We'll come back, start looking at some movie trailers right after this.